the Path of the Immortals Facebook page. If people will just go there and like that, they can watch that video of the moving orb. And one of the things that people talk about in Sedona as well is there's all kinds of UFO lore about the military having an underground base in the desert there. And I didn't verify for sure if that's the case, but there's enough talk about it that I think something is going on. And it kind of reminds me of a lot of the things that you have said, Steve, because people have said that there are guys with weird uniforms, like United Nations uniforms and things like that coming out of there that they haven't seen before. And there's something even going on with some people believe that aliens are actually in contact with this government base. And so there are plenty of books where people are claiming that aliens are interacting with the government and this base out in Sedona. Now, I didn't get any firsthand knowledge of any of that, but I had read about it before I went there. And we weren't expecting this, but I was out taking a photograph with my photographer one night, and my wife was just out shooting shots, seeing if she could see orbs or anything like that in the photographs. And we captured a massive V-shaped UFO way up in the distance in the sky by accident. We didn't even see this thing until we got home and were viewing our photographs, and there it was, way in the distance in the sky. But that's on the internet as well, and I don't know what that is. I've had 3 different experts that examine it, and I've got a range of opinions. Some, like Richard Shaw, who does Marzulli stuff, thinks that it could be like a bunch of different craft flying in a V formation. But other people,
hey, Chris,
yeah.
Let me interrupt you. Those things are being seen by too many people. If TR3, as in Tango Romeo 3, R as in Romeo Bravo. The amount of information, I'm just correcting you because I don't care what so-and-so thinks, and I don't mean this to sound arrogant, but the TR3 and the TR4, those are some of our most sophisticated stuff. The reason that people see the triangle and all of a sudden they see a ball, and then that thing, the triangle morphs into a ball, a giant orb, and then it disappears. Well, the bottom line is we have the technology and have had the technology to jump space. So, it's not a bunch of things. Now, personally, there's so much stuff on the internet that you can see, but it's fascinating that when you're dealing with the triangular shape, and the government does have a secret base there. I sent to Tom, you remember this, I believe you have it, Native American Sacred Sites and the Department of the Defense. Do you remember when I sent that to you?
Yeah, well, you reminded me of it, and I haven't read it yet.
Okay, well, it's massive, but the gist of it is, and this will play, where you're describing, Chris, that you and your wife and your cameraman were, you're in the heart of this whole area. And what was fascinating, and I'm not trying to take away from you, I'm just trying to say what speculation is. My source for that information is 4-star active generals, plural, in special ops, and also some of the scientists that worked on it, okay? So, I'm talking about guys that were aeronautical engineers, and a couple of them have passed now. Thank God they're Christians. But the point being is that, the speculation, take it away. But what's fascinating, and I will make this statement, almost every single military underground site, as well as above ground site, is always built or always contained by the military in order to, they'll put it as a testing ground, or they'll do anything. In essence, they don't want the public in these areas for the very reason that you and your wife and your cameraman saw these things, and people are seeing it all over. So anyway, I just wanted to straighten that out. Go ahead, sir.
Absolutely. And it's really odd that the government bought this Bradshaw Ranch area. A lot of people might not know, but there's a famous Hollywood stuntman named Bob Bradshaw that had this ranch area. And they even had a western town that they used in a lot of the old western movies. So it actually has a rich history. It's in a lot of commercials, a lot of old movies. Even Elvis made a movie at this ranch. So it's a kind of a famous area. But then the government bought it out ostensibly, really, for the Forest Service, so they were going to make it part of the public park system. That's what they said when they bought it. But guess what? It's still got chains around it and a fence saying do not enter, or you're going to be shot. So why is the Forestry Service acquiring land in the Arizona desert and then closing it off to the public where you're not supposed to go on there anymore? And then at the same time, the UFO community and everybody else is talking about that there's an interdimensional portal there and that all kinds of entities are coming through. And people are seeing all kinds of entities there in Sedona, Arizona coming through. Even Some people have even reported seeing dinosaurs. Now, I don't really know what to make of that story, but that is one of the stories that's come through that very area where we were. Now, I didn't see anything like that, but we did catch a lot of those orbs, and we caught a huge UFO on camera. So that's just verified to me because I have it on film, and it will be available through Skywatch TV, and the photographs are absolutely published in the book as well.
Well, Tom, go ahead now if you would, because, again, time goes so fast, you guys, when we're on the radio together. So I want to the reason I want to get into this immediately is because for years, modern anthropology, modern archaeology denied that cannibalism existed in the Southwest. Obviously, they found out differently, but as you were being, how should I say this, informed by the third-generation gentleman, what's his last name?
Mose, M-O-S-E.
Yeah. Okay, Mose, I mean, it was paralleling the same stuff that was out there. What I'm saying is it's like two railroad tracks going into the horizon, where the horizon becomes, just at a vanishing point, but now, on the horizon, and then as you get closer to the horizon, when you see a fixed object, that object's coming to focus. You're on the, one side or the other. You're on the right track, I'm on the left track, we're both on the railroad track. Chris is the tie between the tracks. So what we're doing is we're headed into what used to be the unknown. But what's fascinating to me, and this is critical, there is, and I got into it with a gentleman on my email, there is no antiquity that records giants that were not cannibals that I have found. The only exception was one that was in the British Isles that was supposedly a friendly giant, and that's more in a Limerick realm than it is in the real realm. So the point being is that, will you take us to what Dr. Mose said?
Yeah.
Because I think it's important.
Yeah, absolutely, because the history of what happened here in the United States of America, from the area where Chris went, the whole Sedona area to Mount Graham, central to the Apache, the Hopi, the Navajo, all the way up to the ancient Anasazi. The story is that these guys came and they were absolutely cannibalistic. So if you go down where Chris was, he went to Mount Graham again, then he went over to Sedona. He was covering that whole side of the U.S. while I was up in the Four Corners area. And you look at what is the history, what is the story that is told there from the Apache. So Mount Graham, it's one of the four holiest mountains. So what happens? Well, in the time before time, they say that a large silvery disc came down over the top of the mountain. Now, ufologists like to jump on that and say, it's an ancient astronaut theory, dream come true, we were created by aliens. But actually, and we're not going to get into this tonight, but when you study the scripture, what they call the Oraphim and whatever, and you look at Ezekiel's wheel in the middle of the wheel, God actually moves about on both clouds and also in the chariot is carried about by the chariot, the Oraphim. I don't know if I'm saying that right. Chris Putnam can correct me, but the point is these are angels that appear in kind of a circular fashion, and God rides upon the angelic machinery is a bad word, but you know what I'm saying. He rides upon the device, the chariot.
Well, the chariot. It's a chariot. Tom, is a chariot.
So this this is what the Apache saw. They saw the same thing that Ezekiel saw. They saw this giant wheel that comes down over the top of the mountain. They say that in it is seated a bearded man. They respectfully call him the creator of everything that is good. They say he begins creating everything that is good upon the earth. Then, not long after that, the portal opens again over the top of the mountain. They say another man comes through. Now get this. They say he's not really a man. He is reptilian. He is serpentine. He's exactly what Chris Putnam does a marvelous job in the book On the Path of the Immortals, explaining the fiery flying seraphim who are part of these fallen watchers that came down to the earth, are also part of the army of Lucifer. So but Lucifer himself is described in reptilian terms. So this reptilian, according to the Apache and the Hopi and the Navajo, comes through this portal, and he begins deceiving all of the Native American peoples. He starts teaching them witchcraft, pharmakia. They go down into the their kivas, and where at one time these were like their own little devotional church-like settings, he starts teaching them there how to use the sipapu, the Hopi call it. A doorway is installed in the bottom of their kiva to open a mystical doorway into the bowels of the earth itself, and they start practicing sorcery. And Dr. Mose tells us that they went on from practicing sorcery to practicing cannibalism. But guess what? They finally are successful. They open a door, and guess what happens? Giants come up through these doorways of the earth. They start sweeping across the Arizona Badlands. This is all part of the Apache creation story that you can even go to Wikipedia and read about it. They start sweeping across the Arizona Badlands. They're cannibalizing the Indians. They refer to those first early Indians as the Jindupids, which they say were just peaceful farmers that were living in the Arizona area. They're cannibalizing them. They're grabbing them and snatching them up like they're little chocolate bars or whatever, biting their heads off, throwing their bodies all about. And the early Indians, they run into the crevices of the mountains. They start crying out to that first god, that benevolent creator that they were aware of. They call him the sun god, and he sends a flood, a universal flood that covers over all the face of the earth, that wipes out all of the giants. And then, after that, they live in peace for a period of time, and then all of a sudden these giants start coming back. Now, they're not in the same number as they were once before, but they start coming back. Now, why is that important? Because the dating of that period of time in which the petroglyphs are being written down by the ancient Anasazi and the ancient Jindupids and Indians across America is exactly the same period in history here, at least 1,000 years or more before Jesus Christ walked on the earth in a body and flesh. They're over here talking about portals that opened, giants that came through. They're cannibalistic. They're wiping out everybody. They cry out to God. God sends a flood. That's happening over here, being written on stone in petroglyphs at exactly the same time that Moses is in the Middle East saying, and there were giants in the earth in those days, and also after that. And so what you have is a harmony, a historical correlation. On both sides of the world, exactly the same story is being told. These reptilian beings came through, and then giants came through, and then God wipes them out in a flood. The story is almost identical. I want to say something really quick, too, about what you were saying, Steve. I guess, are we getting ready to go to a break?
No, we got 5 minutes.
Okay. Something that you were saying that has to do with what Timothy was finding, because in these areas where these legends exist that tell these stories, these doorways open, it's those specific areas. It's not other areas. You don't find the Vatican or NASA or military presences going to places where the portals don't exist. It's like Chris was saying a moment ago. They're buying up this land. They're closing the public's access to be able to go into that land. They're literally covering up something that is in those areas, but it's in those areas where you're seeing these very strange and bizarre manifestations. You was talking about Timothy Alberino and the recent trip that he took to Peru and how he noticed that there was a vastly increased presence there of the military, of the government. Well, when you were talking a moment ago, I was sitting here making some notes. This reminds me of something I'll tell you about when we come back from the break that happened when I was on Coast to Coast AM questioning why we had gone into Iraq, Babylon. and something very interesting that transpired between the Iraq Babylonian Museum and a contact that was made to me.
I think. Excuse me. I think the point that's going to grab everybody is that we're. How do I say this? We've been led to believe so many wrong things about history. For instance, you just talked about the lizard-like creatures, the serpentine creatures. Tim Alberino, ladies and gentlemen, you can go on my website, and you need to see this. This isn't a pitch. This is something that you can inform yourself. Did a marvelous analysis on how America got its name. It isn't America, and it was not named for Amerigo Vespucci, who basically just took that name. That wasn't even his birth name, but Amaruca, A-M-E-R-U-C-A, means land of the plumed serpent, land of the feathered serpent. So the point that's fascinating is what's in a name? Everything. Years ago, it was stated that the tomb of Gilgamesh had been found. And not only the tomb of Gilgamesh, but Gilgamesh's remains had been found. Gilgamesh is the oldest epic in